Hi, I've received some questions on rendering, so I just wanted to go over it really quickly. I made this little ball bounce here. Your animations will be a little bit more complicated, but you're going to go down into the rendering drop-down and then go to render settings. There we go. Now, I'm just going to move this over. You'll see here it says a path. This is where it defaults to put all of your images. You're going to start by giving it a name. I'll just call this test. And then you're going to go through and give it an image format. You have two options here for your projects. You can go directly to a QuickTime movie. Make sure you're on movie and not image. Or you can render stills and then use After Effects or Premiere or whatever you're most comfortable with to edit them together. So I like to use Targa files and then use After Effects. Why would you want to use still files instead of animate or rendering directly to video? For this assignment, you could do either and it'll be okay. But if I get 99.9% way done with rendering and something crashes or freezes or glitches, if you're rendering directly to a video, your entire video is ruined. If you're rendering to single frames, and let's say I had 100 frames, you would just need to re-render that 99th frame. So, your renders might not take very long now, but know that in the future, a single still frame could take hours. So, you want to give it a name, decide if you want to go directly to a QuickTime or if you want to go to still files. Then we've got name.extension, and notice it says single frame. We're doing a full animation, so we want name.number.extension. So it'll be test.1.targa.tga. Second frame will be test.2.tga. Make sure you're not doing name.extension.number. I don't even know why that's there because your computer does not know how to open a 1 file or a 2 file. So name.number.extension. Frame padding has to do with how many numbers do you want it to put, like 001. Start frame and end frame. I've got 50 here. Just make sure that this matches your timeline. You want to go by frame 1, aka render frame 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Then you're going to want to pick your camera. I use my perspective view. You could create a camera if that's something you're familiar with. You do not need to. I would like to see these larger than 540. You can do 1280 by 720 if you want. You could do 1920 by 1080 or 1280 by 720. Now, notice here when I've changed my view. To show this, it's called your resolution gate, and you'll want to turn that on. What this is showing is that inside here is what our camera is going to see. So you may want to scrub through to make sure everything is like centered, that it's not going to come off of view, off of your camera. Resolution, we can turn that up to 300. If you're doing test animations, obviously you're going to want to make this smaller. You can keep the resolution smaller, but for the sake of this assignment, you can turn it up, make a portfolio piece. All right, I'm doing Targa files, and we can follow this path. We can go render, and then batch render. Continue, and I'm just using Maya software, and it'll say rendering with Maya software. It'll tell you how far along the render has gone, and it'll remind you of that path of where it's saving the files. Hi, alright, so my computer froze, but we're good. So now at the bottom you can see it says result, when rendering completed, see console for more information. You can always click this button next to it, and it'll show you the percentage of rendering done and then where it is saving your images, so if you forget. Or, again, if you wanted to go straight to a QuickTime, you can do it this way, and then you'll just have your QuickTime file all set and ready to go. You don't have to convert your QuickTime file. I know they talk about an MPEG 4. You can do an H.264. You can do a QuickTime. Be careful with AVI, but we'll get to that later. So I don't know if you guys have used After Effects before or how comfortable you feel with it, but you can always go to New Composition. Make sure your composition settings match whatever your render settings were. And then this is going to be way too long for mine, but this is hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. You can hit OK. I'm going to right mouse click in here and import. You can also go to File, Import. I'm going to go to File, and then Documents, Maya, Projects, Default, Images. And here are all of my images, my ball. The main thing you want to do is make sure you turn on sequence. I ended up saving these as TIFFs instead of Targas. You can do either, but just make sure it's a sequence because it'll grab all of them in order. We can hit open. You'll just hit OK to straight unmatted. And we'll click and drag this into our composition. And then you can see my ball bounce. It's only 50 frames, so we really do not need our composition to be long at all. All right, so now you can see my ball bounce. I didn't put any lights in my scene. If you want to go over lighting, please let me know and I can do another video. Depending upon the materials of your character, you may want to add some lights. You may be fine just with the kind of default render. But once you have it set, I'm going to go to Composition and then Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. So if I want to do an H.264, that's the most common video. Unfortunately, in the newer versions of After Effects, you can't just do it in the render queue. So I go Add to Media Encoder Queue. Then it's going to have to open up another software program. So if your computer is running a little bit slowly, be very patient, be careful, because now you have multiple programs open. And then it will automatically put it in the queue. So we'll give this a second. All right, and then you can pick your options here. I'm going to do an H.264, high quality. You can click on the name of the file here and, call it whatever you wanted to. I'm just going to do test, and I'm going to save it onto my desktop. Save, and then you're going to hit this play and it'll start rendering. You can look down at the bottom to see it actually render. So let's let this run. Alright, so then you can see it says done, and then we can just look on our desktop and my test video is there and good to go. Okay, so you can always go to Maya and just render straight to QuickTime, or you can do it this way if you feel more comfortable. Hope that helps, and let me know if you have any other questions.